Hello and welcome to this edition of the Big G Video Podcast. This is a podcast and it will be me talking rather than much video stuff because it is a podcast. So I'm Big G, I make videos about making videos, and this podcast is all about videos and video editing and things like that. And this podcast specifically, this episode, is about video editing because I've seen two things recently that have made me question how people edit and how they edit in such a way as to get a reaction. So the first thing is I watched a video and it was on YouTube and it was from, I think, Talk Radio or Good Morning Britain, one of these more sensationalist media outlets that we have in the UK, and I've only seen them on YouTube. But initially the title got me quite angry. The title was something along the lines of "Migrant is laughing at us and he takes full advantage." It was something along those lines. That's what it portrayed. A migrant had come to this country, was living a life of luxury, and he had filmed it, and he was happily sat there laughing at the British taxpayer. And when I saw that, I have to admit I was quite annoyed by that. That really triggered an emotion in me that made me a bit angry and resentful. So I watched this news report, and that's what they talked about: migrants coming over and being put up in a hotel and living a life of luxury. And then I saw the video accompaniment to this, and I saw straight through everything. So a migrant had come over on a boat, on a small boat. This migrant in question had come over on a small boat, and he had essentially vlogged the whole thing. So he was recording things and he put it on, he must have put it on YouTube, or somehow this media outlet in the UK got hold of it and turned it into a sensationalist story. So they showed snippets of him. So he wasn't particularly smiling, he wasn't particularly laughing at anyone as it had been portrayed. All he was doing was he was capturing his journey like a vlog, just filming it of himself with his smartphone, and that was it. And at no point in any of the video that I saw was this man laughing or taking advantage. You could see him in France. You could see him on the small boat coming over. You could see him once in the UK sitting in a hotel on a bed watching telly. And let's think about that. So it's completely fine if people vlog, and it's completely fine if they vlog their experience. That's all what it's about. This is what I'm doing. This is what it looks like. And this is what happens. People vlog all the time. Why should someone coming to this country or being a migrant or whatever not vlog? Of course they're going to vlog. They're going to capture it. If only for prosperity, if only for putting on YouTube. It doesn't matter if they capture it and what they capture it for. But it had been edited in such a way that it looks like the headline. So actually, they showed this person in the hotel room watching telly, and you would immediately think, oh, they're in a hotel room, they're watching telly, they're getting all this good stuff. But actually they weren't, because all he had to do was watch telly. He was in a hotel room, he didn't really have much else to do, he was watching telly. He wasn't sat there smiling and grinning like a Cheshire cat, he was just watching telly. In all these things he was doing, he was neutral. He did occasionally smile to the camera, but not in a mocking way, not to say, look at me, I'm taking all your taxpayers' money, not at all. But it had been edited in such a way as to convey that, and it had been given such a sensationalist headline title that it would only drive people to the wrong conclusions. And certainly, if I went off the title, I would have got completely the wrong conclusions. So when we edit things, we try and make the story quicker, we try and make the story more engaging. We can edit the story to be on the side that we want, and clearly that's what this news program was trying to do: edit it to be sensationalist, when in fact all it was, someone has vlogged their journey from France to the UK and where they're staying in the UK, albeit they were a migrant who came here to the UK on a small boat. Doesn't matter. Nothing to get upset about. Why would this chap be any different to any of the others who were in the same position? He just vlogged it and this news outlet had just picked it up. So I can see a lot of people watching that being angry. I can see a lot of people seeing it and being angry. I can see a lot of people forming an opinion about it. But this character was misrepresented, misconstrued, and edited in such a way that it would provoke a reaction. Now, my second thing that I'm going to talk about is auditing. I stumbled a couple of months ago across an auditing video, and I have to admit, I've been hooked ever since. I do like watching auditing videos. And an auditing video, particularly the UK ones, I've not seen American ones or ones from other countries, is they will go to a business and they'll just film the business and maybe film some interesting things, give a bit of background, and maybe sort of get a picture from above with a drone, that sort of thing, and ask some questions. And, oh, why has that bin there? What's in that bin? Oh, look at this. They've got this forklift. But actually what tends to happen in these videos is halfway through this process, a confrontation happens between the business and the person doing the auditing. And I must admit, that is the more interesting aspect of an auditing video, because what will happen is someone will come out and they'll say, you can't film here, you're not allowed, you're filming private property. And the auditor, who knows the law very well, will say, but I can film here because I'm on a public footpath and I'm actually not doing anything wrong, and filming and photography is not a crime, so I can film here, and that should be the end of it. But often what happens is people who feel that this isn't the case or don't believe them or whatever the reason, they continue to argue it and it ends up in a confrontation. So if you look on YouTube at some older ones where you've got the sort of histogram down the bottom of where people are watching things, you can see that most people watch the confrontation aspects. I tend to watch all of them, but I'm always more interested in the confrontation aspects. So there is a bit of public education going on here, because the company says, no, you can't film here. And the auditor says, well, where does your land start then? If you're in private property, where does your land start? And they'll say, oh, it starts where you're standing. And they say, but that's a public footpath. Surely that cannot be your land. And surely I'm entitled to be here because it's a public footpath. And really, the business or the security guard doesn't really have a leg to stand on. However, I can see from a business's point of view that they would want to discourage such activities, so would go out and say that. And then the auditor says, just to let you know, I'm going to fly a drone over your property just to get an aerial view. And then people get very upset by that. And the reason they get very upset is because there's a drone, but it's always a sub 250 drone, and there aren't really any restrictions on flying that over a commercial business unless it's an airport or a military base or in a no-fly zone. And the auditor is always very careful to check on his app if they're in a no-fly zone. So the auditor is doing everything within the letter of the law. Now, we could argue about whether they take advantage of that, whether they should be doing that, but they're not breaking any laws, and people get quite uppity. Now, if we look at that from a different aspect, we see something quite different. So it isn't actually edited. So you see footage from a body cam, and you know, it's not edited and chopped and changed. Sometimes it's sped up, but if they're there for 40 minutes, the video is 40 minutes long. You get start to finish with nothing really cut out, but you will have the drone footage put in the relevant place. And you watch this and you think, oh, this security guard's being a bit over the top. They're being a bit unfriendly. I can't believe they've said that. That's really out of order that they've said that. But then the moment you look at it from another point of view, you see a completely different side. So the auditors that go to the industrial estates and these businesses, for their own safety, they wear masks or they wear hoodies. And I say for their own safety, I don't have a problem with this. I think it's a very sensible thing to do. They wear hoodies and they obscure their faces, and they have like something over their mouth, so you can only really see their eyes. Now, from a business's point of view, I suspect that is a little bit alarming for a business who isn't used to this. They see someone turn up with a camera, start videoing the property. They can't see who this person is because their face is obscured. When they go out and they say, "Who are you?" the auditor doesn't really give a sensible answer. "Why are you here?" "I'm just making a video about your property." And I can see them not liking that, even though there isn't too much they can do. And in some cases, they call the police, and the police say, "Well, there's not really much we can do because they haven't actually done anything wrong." Although the police can clearly understand where the business is coming from. And on some occasions, you get groups of auditors together. You get lots of auditors going and doing the same video. And again, I completely see the reason for that. They're in a group, they can film each other. If there are any problems, it's easier to say, "Oh no, we didn't do anything because my friend was filming this footage and you can see I'm not doing what I'm supposed to." But when they film as a group, you can see that they've all got their hoods up, they've all got their face obscured, and I can see that being quite intimidating for a business when a group of people with hoods up and cameras are starting to film the property. So I'm not saying that auditor videos are edited in any way to obscure the truth, but you only see one side of the coin. And in many occasions, that side of the coin is absolutely fine. But I think I certainly have forgotten that there is another side to this, which is the business side, or the side of the business who are seeing people in hoodies filming their business. And people assume if it's a private property that you can't film it, which is ludicrous. You can film anything. You can't film inside the private property, but you can film the property itself. You can take pictures of it. If people turned up with a phone, no one would really care. The business has the business can go out and legally say, "What are you doing? Who are you? Why are you filming this?" Of course, they can go out and they can ask those questions. That is absolutely fine. But then they can't really demand that people go. Well, they can demand it, but the auditor doesn't need to go. And I've seen some videos where auditors have gone on to police sites and they've audited a police site and they've been arrested by the police. But then they've been found to have done an unlawful arrest because anyone could walk on this police site. There was no boundary that said you can't come in. There's nothing to say no filming. No one has really been prepared for auditors and filming businesses. And so many businesses really don't know what to make of it or how to handle it. Occasionally you see someone who comes out and they're quite friendly. Say, "Oh, okay, I know what you're doing. Yep, that's fine. Don't come onto our property." And the auditors are quite nice then. Well, actually, I'm going to take that back. They're not unnice when there's a confrontation, but it's quite a pleasant surprise to see that actually happen. I've been in a shopping centre myself, and I have got out a very small camera, a camera that's smaller than my phone, and I've done a bit of filming, and someone's come over and said, "Oh, you can't do that," while I can see someone else filming with their mobile phone. Any camera, for some reason, becomes a target, gets people worried. I've even seen someone on YouTube who has a really, really basic camera, and they have it and they carry around a tripod and they just go places and they film it on a camera with a really old beaten up tripod. And again, people come out, "You can't film here," and there's the confrontation of, "But why? I'm on public property. I've got a right of way here. You don't own this footpath. I'm not on your property." And there's all that argument. There's huffing and puffing. And then finally, the security guard, the business person, they have to relent because there isn't really anything they can do. And it makes a good watch. But like I say, there is another element which we don't see because we are not that side of the camera. So this podcast episode was really all about editing for impact and how sometimes things can be edited maybe in a way that maximizes the emotion, maximizes the impact. And certainly that was the case for that news article I saw. There was a big studio debate about it. They had pundits in, and ultimately they misconstrued the character. They misconstrued what they were doing. And if this person was laughing and smiling all the way to the bank, They provided no evidence that this was the case. They didn't show any TikTok video where he says, "Look at me, ha ha ha," none of that. But they wrote that narrative into their video anyway. Anyway, this has been a bit of a different podcast to what I normally do. This has been quite political because I've talked about migrants, small boats, and coming to the UK. But I also felt, while I don't want to engage in that sort of politics, I should also put the other side of the equation to it, which is, I feel this person was completely misrepresented and what they were doing was completely innocent, but it made a very sensationalist news story, so someone is going to jump on it. Anyway, thank you for listening, and goodbye.